Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be making this gift bag, wine bag. It will hold a 40-pounder as well. And we're going to be using the puff stitch for this. And that's how it's going to make it look like what it looked like in the picture. So in the picture I had a 40-pounder of gin in here. This will also hold a magnum of wine. Let's get started. So I am starting with a 5mm because that's what my yarn calls for. So whatever yarn you're using, use the hook size that it calls for. And I'm going to use this green color. This is just an evergreen because I'm hoping that it'll be easy to see. And I have a new light, so I'm hoping that it's much better than the light I had. So we're going to start with a magic ring. And you're going to put 6 single crochets in the middle. You're going to put 2 single crochets in each stitch around. So we're not slip stitching or chaining 2. We're going to do this amigurumi style. So just go right into the stitch. Now I'm just going to count to 12, but if you're putting a stitch marker in, it goes in after the first stitch, not the second. But I'm just going to count to 12, putting 2 in each space. Your next round is going to be 1 single crochet and an increase. So I'm going to use my stitch marker here. That's 1 single crochet. And then your next stitch gets the increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. And then you repeat 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, all the way around. And at the end you should have 18 stitches. Your next round is going to be 2 single crochets and an increase. So that's number 1. Put 1 in the next stitch. So that's 2 single crochets and then your increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. And repeat 1, 1, 2, all the way around. At the end you should have 24 stitches. Your next round is going to be 3 single crochets and an increase. That's number 1, 2, and 3 single crochets, and then your increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. And repeat. 3 single crochets and an increase. And at the end of this you should have 30 stitches. Now each time you come around, you should always end with your increase right before the marker. That's the end of your sequence. So if you're not, then you might have to count your stitches to make sure that your numbers are right. Your next round is going to be 4 single crochets and an increase. The reason we're just continuing increase, 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 and we're not doing 1 single crochet in each stitch is because I don't want it to cup. I want it to stay flat. So that's number 1. That's 4 single crochets, and then your next stitch gets the increase of 2 single crochets in the same space. So repeat this all the way around, and at the end you should have 36 stitches. Your last increase round is going to be 5 single crochets and an increase. This will bring you to 42 stitches, and that's as far as we're going. So that's number 1. That's 5 single crochets and then your increase. 2 single crochets in the same space. So you should have 42 stitches. So we are going to, in the back loops only, we are going to do 1 single crochet in each stitch. So you don't have to turn it to find your back loops. Your back loops are right here, right there. There's 1. These are your back loops. So you're only going into those. That's the full stitch right there. But you're going to only go into this back loop. And you're going to do 1 in each back loop for 42. And then we're going to kind of get out of this amigurumi, and we're going to do it in a normal crochet. So we're going to slip stitch, and we're going to chain 2, and we're going to start our double crochets. So please don't let this confuse you. I've already had somebody confused by the fact that I go from single crochet to double crochet, but that's crochet. Sometimes you just do, and I'm weird. So back loop only, 1 single crochet. Now don't worry if it looks like it's getting all stretched out of shape. It will go back into shape. You don't have to pull super tight. You don't have to do any of that. Just do your regular tension, and it'll go back into shape. See, it's already gone back into shape, so don't worry about pulling on it. So back loops only, 1 single crochet all the way around. So this creates this nice base for us. You see where that line is? That's what we just did. So now it takes it from being flat to being up. It's just a nicer way to do it. So before we continue, let's take care of this middle guy. Pull your center closed if it's not already tight, and just make a knot. It doesn't need to be a tight knot because a tight knot might slip through. So just a knot, and just cut it off, but leave a little nubby because you don't want the knot to work itself loose. So we're not going to need our stitch marker anymore. So you're going to go into your next stitch, the entire stitch, and you're going to slip stitch, and you're going to chain 2. So we're going to be doing a pattern stitch called the puff stitch. Well, it's my rendition of the puff stitch. It's not the complete actual puff stitch because you put more than just what I'm going to into the sorry, that's just my dog barking. But for this round we're just going to do 1 double crochet in each stitch, and so we're just getting set up for the pattern stitch. So 1 double crochet in each stitch. You should still have 42 stitches. So after your slip stitch and your chain 2, this is where we're going to start doing the puff stitch. So my rendition of the puff stitch anyway. So into your first stitch here, you're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull up. You're not going to do anything. You're going to yarn over again. You're going to go in and pull up a loop. So I want you to extend this. So when you yarn over and you pull through, pull it up a bit. So we're going to extend it, yarn over, pull up a loop, and really pull up. We're going to do that 4 times. So that's 4 times. This is my rendition of the puff stitch. The puff stitch I think is 5 or 6 times, I don't know. And then you're going to yarn over and you're going to pull through all of this, and then you're going to secure it with a single crochet on top. Chain 2 after that. So that's basically chain 3. So 3 single crochets basically. So chain 3 is what you're going to hear me say after you pull through. And that's my rendition of the puff stitch. The reason I'm chaining 3 is because I'm skipping 2 spaces, and I'm going to go into the next stitch and draw up a loop and pull up. So I'm extending it, and I'm going to do that 4 times. Pull through all of this, chain 3, skip 2, pull up, you want this stitch extended, pull through all of this, chain 3. So like I said, you're basically chaining 2, or your single crochet chain 2, but I'm just going to say chain 3. So this is what you should have. So we want these big spaces because we're going to use them later. Skip 2, pull up a loop and extend it, extend it. You'll notice as you go, you won't be able to extend it. It gets crowded. That's why I'm only doing 4. Pull through all of that. 3, chain 3. So continue on with your puff stitch and I'll meet you back and I'll show you how to do the next row. So when I get back around, I can do my skip 2. I've got this last space I can use, but this one's going to be a little smaller. I'm going to put 3 because I've got this chain 2 space, but I'm going to take him over too. So I put 3 in there. I do my pull through. I secure it. Then I'm going to come in here to the top of that chain. I'm going to slip stitch. So it is going to look, you're going to see where your stuff is, if you're really looking, like where your seam is, if you're really looking, because there's only one space. Actually, there's not even much of a space in between that, but not a whole lot you can do in that case. So we're going to chain 2. So your next round is going to be the exact same puff stitch, but you're going to put it into these big spaces right there. So easy peasy. I wanted to make this as easy as I can, so just make sure that you're extending this stitch. So you do 4 extended stitches, pull through. Did I do 4? I don't know, that felt like I did more. Pull through them all. You're doing the exact same thing. Secure it, chain 2. Move on to the next big space. Put 4 in there. Secure it, chain 2. So that's it. This is the design. So I did this for 12 rows. You may have to do more if you're not extending that stitch. You know, you'll have to just take whatever bottle and check for size, but I did 12 rows. But all mine are extended stitches. So easy peasy. I will meet you back here after our 12 rows is done to show you how to do the handles. So I am on my, just at the end here of my 12th row, and my last stitch, I'm just going to put the 3 in here. Secure the stitch. I'm going to slip stitch. This is the chain that from my previous row. I'm going to do my slip stitch. I'm going to chain 1. So this is what it should look like at this point. So now we're going to go back to single crochets, because the reason being I did singles down here just so I don't confuse anybody. I'll explain again. The reason I do single crochets and I switch stitches is sometimes you just need a more secure, tighter stitch. I feel the single crochet is tighter and stronger than a double, so that's why I did single crochets down here. I'm doing double crochets for here because it's a pattern stitch, but then I'm going back to single crochets up here for the handle because it is a tighter stitch, and this is a handle. So I mean, the bottles weigh. Depending on the size of the bottle, we're talking magnums and 40 pounders, so they're not light. So I needed the single crochet to be sturdy. You don't want this all getting stretched out of shape and stuff like that. So that is why I chose to go back and forth from single crochet to double crochet, and that's why I usually do them in a lot of patterns that I do. Some people don't like that, and you know what, you don't have to do the exact pattern. So you got basically the rest of this. If you wanted to continue with your double crochets, that's perfectly fine, but just know when somebody picks this up to carry the bottle, this is going to start to stretch over time. You're not going to be able to use the bag, you know, over and over again. So that's why I went to single crochets. So this is what we're going to be doing next, is the handle, and we're going to be using single crochets. So chain 1. After this, we're not going to be chaining anymore. We're going back to amigurumi style because I prefer it. It leaves no seam at all, and the last thing you want is a seam. In each stitch, you're going to put a single crochet, except for these stitches where the big space is. You're just going to put them right into the big space, and you're going to put 3 of them into each big space. So your first round is going to be, that's going to be a stitch, obviously. It's right above the puff. But when you get to your big space, you're going to put 3 single crochets in that space. So put it into the space. You don't have to put it into the stitch. Alright, try to keep this easy peasy. And now we're back to our next puff, and the stitch above it, you're just going to put a single crochet. And then we're on a big space again. So you're going to put 3 single crochets into that big space. 1 single crochet over the puff, and then 3 into the big. So this is going to be your repeat all the way around. I almost lost that stitch. I'm just using regular 4-weight yarn, so in case you're wondering. So there's a stitch right there above the puff. So you're just going to use that stitch. But for the most part, you're just using the big spaces. So 3 single crochets into the big space. Back to the puff, 1 into that stitch. 3 into the big space. Oh, we should have marked this. Let's go back here. Let's mark our beginning so we know where our beginning stitch is. So that's my chain 1 basically, but we're going to use that when I come back around because we're not going to be chaining anymore. So sorry, I should have marked that at the beginning. I didn't think about it. So stitch above the puff, and then 3 stitches, 3 single crochets into the big space. So your numbers aren't important at all. So I've come back around to my stitch marker, and this next row is actually going to be 1 single crochet in each stitch. So now we have stitches all the way around. So this is where you can count. So I'm going to skip this space here because that's where I did my slip stitch before, and I'm going to go into this next stitch. So you should have 50 stitches, and this is where you're going to be able to count to see if you have 50 stitches. and then make your adjustments accordingly. So I'm back around, and I had to do a couple of decreases just to get it to be 50, but it was no big deal. Your next round is going to be 4 single crochets and a decrease, and you may not get it all in, but just do whatever you can. So I need to do one more decrease to bring this down to 50. So that's my number 1. That's 4 single crochets, and then your decrease is go into the first stitch, pull up a loop, go into your second stitch, pull up a loop, and then pull through all 3. So you're single crocheting 2 together. That's your decrease. So repeat, 4 single crochets, and a decrease. All the way around, and fit whatever you can in, because this does not divide into 50. So I'm back around to my marker, and I didn't get my whole sequence in either, so no big deal. Doesn't really matter. So for the next 3 rows, you're just going to put 1 single crochet in each of these. You should have 42 stitches. And again, if you don't have 42 stitches, you can fix that along the way somewhere in these 3 rows. So 3 rows, 1 single crochet each, stitch. I'll put my screen up and I will see you on the other side. So I'm back around again. I'm done my 3 rows. This is what it should look like. So now we're going to do the handles. So we're going to do 5 single crochets. That's number 1. That's 5 single crochets, and then you're going to chain 11. You're going to skip 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You're going to go into this 11th one. You're going to make a single crochet. You're going to do 11 single crochets. So that's number 1. That's 11 single crochets. You're going to chain 11. You're going to skip 10. And then the 11th one, you're going to put a single crochet. And then you're going to just single crochet the rest of the way to your marker. Five for me. Initially it was 6, so I'm short a stitch now, but no big deal. No big deal. So we're going back to double crochets. So we're going to do 1 double crochet at each stitch around, but when we get to our big spaces here, the 2 chains, we're going to put 15 double crochets into this big space. So if you wanted to, you can do a slip stitch and a chain 2, or you can just change to double crochet. I'm just changing a double crochet, so I'm still going to use my stitch marker. And the only reason I did this is because aesthetically I thought it looked cool. So if you don't want to, you don't need to, you can just stick with single crochets. So pull your stitches apart so you can find all of your stitches. There's one right there that normally might get missed. So now I'm at a big space, so right into the space I'm going to put 15 double crochets. So it can be awkward, but do your best. So that's 15. So you can move these and spread them out to make it look better. That's the beauty of putting them into the big space, is you can move these around. So that's what it should look like. So double crochet in each stitch around to the other big space, and we're going to do the exact same thing. Oh, see, I missed that stitch. There's a stitch right there, I just about missed it. So I'm back around to this big space. Oh no! There we go. And I'm going to put 15 double crochets in here. So that's my 15, and again I'm just going to spread them out. You know, you got to make sure that one's down at this corner. Spread them out just to make them look proper. And then just double crochet to your marker. There we go. Take your marker out. Go into this next stitch. Slip stitch. You can fasten off. So you just need enough to weave in a decent end. Pull that up so that it looks even. So before you weave in your end, just to make this look better, go through the next stitch, pull up on the next stitch, and then you can start weaving. This makes it look a little bit better. And try not to pull tight, because you don't want to pull that down. to go in different directions. You can weave as much as you want. That's completely up to you. There we go. Your handles. There we go. And there is your gift bag for your booze. Whether it be wine or a bottle. It'll fit both. Thanks for joining me, guys. I'll see you in the next video.